My name is Tomas Talamonte. I'm Deputy Chief of Staff to Mayor Muriel Bowser, and we want to welcome you to our DC Public Schools Safe Return to School Planning Update presentation. Again, my name is Tomas Talamonte, Deputy Chief of Staff to Mayor Muriel Bowser, and we want to welcome you and thank you for joining us on this Thursday evening. A few housekeeping items before we get started with the presentation and the WebEx meeting. We want to remind everyone for this TeleTownHall, we will have a Q&A portion of the program. And so if you have questions at any time, you can simply throw them into the chat box if you're joining us on the WebEx, or you can ask if you're watching on Twitter or Facebook, our social media streams, you can ask your questions directly there as well by asking, just simply commenting and asking your questions, and we'll get to both some of our Q&A questions here in the chat as well as our questions that are on social media. We do have interpretation available on the WebEx, so please, again, make sure that you are tuning in for that interpretation that's available, ASL interpretation if you need it. And again, for your questions, please ask them directly in the Q&A, the comment box here on WebEx, the chat box, or you can ask directly on Twitter and on Facebook. So to get us started today, I'm going to turn it to Dr. Louis Farabee, the Chancellor for DC Public Schools. Dr. Farabee?
Thank you, Tomas. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're excited today to share more about our critical updates for families as relates to our safe return to school after winter break. I am joined today by several of my colleagues to help deepen your understanding of where we are and our plans for students returning back to school on January the 5th. I'm joined today by Dr. Bryn Elliott, who leads our student supports work, which includes our health services team. I'm also joined today by Eli Ross, our Chief Operating Officer, and we also have one of our agency colleagues with the Department of Health, Dr. Mangler. So thank you for the team and joining us as panelists today to share more with our families about our safe return after winter break. On the next slide, we're going to share a little bit more information about what families should expect as relate to a proof of a negative test required for students and staff to return. On Wednesday, January the 5th, every student is expected to provide proof of a negative test before returning to school on Wednesday, January the 5th. We're asking that families have students take their rapid COVID test on Tuesday, January the 4th, as we need all of the antigen-based rapid tests completed 24-hour periods before students return on Wednesday, January the 5th. In support of a safe reopening for our staff, we're also including our staff and partners in the expectation and our providers that provide support to students to also ensure that individuals also receive a negative test before reporting to work. We will ensure that staff is tested on Monday, January the 3rd, and we'll also continue to collaborate with our partners. You may be wondering why DCPS is moving to this posture for a return to school. And now in the next slide, I'm gonna share a little bit more about why we're doing this and how it's aligned to our three pillars of our response during the health crisis. You may recall that DCPS has three pillars in the way we respond in the health emergency to COVID-19, and that is preventing, screening, and also keeping our families informed. In collaboration with our health partners, we've determined that one way we can reduce the transmission of COVID-19 in our schools as students return from winter break is to ensure that everyone has a negative test before returning. We don't take this decision lightly, but we also understand prioritizing the health and safety of our students is important to ensure that they have access to a learning environment where they can continue to be challenged, loved, and prepared. As a part of our test return policy, we see this as a way of prevention and screening as we are elevating our surveillance of COVID transmission and positivity within our staff and student population. It's also important to note that we will continue our asymptomatic testing protocol as well. So on Wednesday, January 5th, and also Thursday, January 6th, and then Friday, January 7th, we will be administering our asymptomatic protocol among our students, which is done randomly. We also are continuing all of our other health safe measures, which include our masking, our HVAC enhancements, our cleaning protocols as students return to school. And we'll often students apply with our ask, look protocol as they arrive on campus as well. As it relates to keeping you informed, as we've done in the past, we will communicate to school communities at any time there's a positive case in their school, their classroom, and then when an individual needs to isolate or quarantine, we will communicate that as well. It's my pleasure now to turn it over to Dr. Mangler, who will speak a little bit more around the recommendation and the current state of COVID in our community and how this strategy aligns with what we're seeing from our health agency and authority. My pleasure to turn it over to Dr. Mangler at this time.
Thank you, Chancellor. It's a pleasure being here and to serve the public and to kind of discuss the reasoning behind the important test to return to school protocol and policy. So next slide. So as you can see, as we have seen in the news, the nation is seeing an unprecedented increase, right, in the COVID cases. But the numbers are not any different of what we've seen in DC. As you can see, our case rate compared to the entire pandemic is almost 20-fold higher than what it actually was a month ago. So very high case rates. Now, from an epidemiologic point of view, in the past, we've seen, you would see a spike and you'd see a trend of increasing cases after holidays or after a travel season. So that's not uncommon. However, what is different this time is the spike is unusual, as you can see. And the spike is unusual because we have the new Omicron variant, and everybody has heard in the news, right, that this variant is very contagious. So what do we mean by contagious? Contagious is it can spread from person to person, but it's also very infectious. So infectious means that it can infect you very quickly. So next slide. So what the mayor and the mayor's team has done is took a very proactive approach. And the proactive approach is to try to avoid the spread in schools as people come back from these vacations and holidays. And the whole idea of this policy of test to return is very science-based. It's actually a brilliant idea. So let me kind of explain you why it's so science-based. Now, if you look at this table I have or a graph I have, when you look at something that's contagious or a disease that's contagious, it's classified by something known as an R0 or an R0 value. So the higher the value, the more contagious the disease, right? So think of it this way. Let's say when you look at the data out there, you Google data and you look at Omicron, people are saying its R0 value is like anywhere from 2 to 5. So for our purposes, let's take 3, right? So say Omicron is as contagious as classified as 3. So think of it in a school. You have a lot of people and you have a contagious number, R value of 3. What that R is telling you is every one person is going to spread it to 3 people, right? So if someone is positive, I come back to school, I'm going to spread it to 3 people. Those 3 are going to spread it to another 3. Those 3, another 3. So if you do like 10 rounds, like that table shows you, just that one person could have spread it to over 80,000 people. That's why you saw that graph earlier, right? That exponential spike. That's what we've seen. It spreads so quick. And so this is all science-based, right? So next slide. So in this policy, what DC has done is actually been that proactive in making sure that we can avoid that spread in school. And the way you do it is, you have an approach that's called a layered approach, right? And in a layered approach, you do kind of, as we know, you wear masks, you social distance, you make sure, you're washing your hands, you do face coverings, you do testing. So what we have done in this scenario with this policy is before anybody comes to school, right, you get tested because many may be asymptomatic. You won't even know you tested. And the antigen test is so important because it's kind of very specific. It works different from a PCR. And the specificity of it is that it would pick up somebody that may be positive. So all those positives stay at home, right? Now, we may miss somebody. We may not capture everybody. So what we've done as people come in school, you already got the positives at home. So everybody coming in school may not be positive. So you are already on a safe side. But in addition to that, we've also introduced people test 36 hours after, right? And that after is if someone got missed, they can be captured again and then isolated. So what we've done within the school system is really try to avoid as many positive cases as possible, which we've never done before, after a holiday or after some seasonal break or a long vacation, right? So this is phenomenal. This entire idea has been science-based, which has now been put into policy. And that's why this test to return is so important for DC because it's going to keep students back in school, right? That's the best place for them to learn. And this policy is going to help having people in school, less people being quarantined. So again, everybody in school and keeping schools going. So on that, I will stop, but I hope that kind of gives you a really big picture of why this policy has been introduced and why it's so important. So thank you, folks.
Thank you, Dr. Mangla. It is a great reminder of our value around in-person learning and that we believe the best place for our students to learn and to receive the supports they need is in school and in person. And we view in-person learning as an essential operation for the district. So with any other essential operation, we will continue to operate with the greatest extent, to the greatest extent possible. And we will do that with our situational transitions as needed. But we believe, as Dr. Mingler outlined, one way that we can continue to keep our students in school is to ensure every student returns with a negative test. And so, as we are moving forward with this approach to reducing transmission in our schools, I want to remind families of what we're expecting of all students as we think of test to return and what that means for our students. So we go to the next slide. I want to remind families again that every DCPS family member should have received an email yesterday from me outlining the following steps. Number one, you can pick up your COVID-19 rapid antigen test from a DCPS school on Monday, January 3rd from 1 to 4 p.m. or on Tuesday, January 4th between 8:30 a.m. and 4 p.m. The COVID-19 rapid antigen tests are also available at city sites around the district. You can go to the website coronavirus.dc.gov/testing for a listing of those sites. And on Tuesday, we're asking everyone to take use of the rapid antigen test, whether they picked it up on Monday or Tuesday, to administer the test on Tuesday. It's important to administer the test on Tuesday because we want to have results within 24 hours of when students to return. So we're asking families to comply accordingly. And then finally, we're asking families to upload their test results. And so families can provide a proof of their negative test for their student by going to the website dcps.dc.gov/safe return. Again, that's dcps.dc.gov/safe return. We're asking that families do that by 5 p.m. on Tuesday, January the 4th. We also want to remind families that they should continue to also monitor health conditions of everyone in their household, regardless of the result of the test, as we're still asking families to follow our as the protocols for potential symptoms and then isolate anyone accordingly. Again, we want families to take the test on Tuesday, January 4th. We will not consider tests administered prior to January 4th. Families can also submit PCR tests as well if they recently took a PCR test. On the next slide, I want to show you what the test kit looks like. And as you can see here on the diagram of in the photo of the actual kit, you can see that this test can be done in 15 minutes. It is very intuitive. There is a video that's included with the kit that shows you step by step how to administer the test. And there's a QR code that you can download that also allows you to get more information and also to receive a PDF document of your results. You'll also get a screen posting of your results as well that you could document or take a photo of. So we're asking again when families receive the negative indication from their test results that they go to DCPS.dc.gov/safe return and upload their results on Tuesday, January 4th. To do that, we're asking families to enter a child's name, address, contact, email as a part of the process, which will produce the PDF document that I mentioned earlier, or families can upload the photo as well that will be reflected on the screen once the testing process is complete. If families have any questions about the testing process or the kit, we're asking that they call 202-442-5885. Again, that's 202-442-5885 and press 1 for assistance. We go to the next slide. We just want to remind families of what to do if their student or child tests positive. First, we want you to call your school and to notify them of the positive test so we know that your child's in quarantine and we know that your child has excused absence. And then we also ask that any student who tests positive ensure that that individual is isolated for a minimum of 10 days from the onset of symptoms or their positive test if they're asymptomatic. And then we're also asking that any student who is asymptomatic and tests positive, that they isolate for a minimum of 10 days from the day they took their test. And so it's important that we hear from you if there is a positive test so we know where the student is during the first couple of days of return and that we know that the student families are following the protocol. On the next slide, we show a little bit more information that we want you to follow as relates to what to expect for staff members. We're asking all of our staff members to report on Monday, January 3rd, and they will be instructed to pick up a test kit and they will upload their results on that Monday. And it's an easy to follow process for our staff members as well. And we ask that they also continue to monitor their symptoms along with our students. And so at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Eli Ross, who's going to share a little bit more about our operations and the mass distribution and the distribution of tests when students and staff return to school. Thank you, Eli.
All right, thank you, Chancellor. Next slide, please. Okay, we are well positioned for operations next week. Next week, we will have KN95 masks for all staff and teachers in all of our schools. By the close of business today, all of those masks will be distributed to those schools. In addition, yesterday we completed the delivery of absolutely all of our rapid antigen test kits. Approximately 77,000 have been delivered to all of our schools. So we are well positioned for the distribution of those next week. Specific directions will be coming directly from your schools on how specific sites will operate. But next week, it's important to know that you can go either to the school that your child is enrolled in, or you can go to any school that may be convenient to you. Next slide, please. We recognize at DCPS that not only are students relying on us for their educational needs, but we recognize that they are also relying on us for their food and nutrition needs. During Monday and Tuesday of next week, we're going to be operating 15 grab-and-go meal sites across the district in all 8 wards. Students will be able to pick up a meal kit that contains breakfast and lunch as they would normally receive if school were in session those 2 days. And then on January the 5th, we're going to return to full meal service at all 118 schools. So we will be well prepared for return to work on Wednesday, January 5th. And at this point, I'm going to transition to Dr. Brent Elliott. Next slide, please.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much. As the Chancellor shared, we have many mitigation strategies that we are putting in place to ensure that our students and staff remain COVID-free and safe. We have enhanced ventilation, universal mask wearing, and social distancing. And this test to return is another important strategy that we are implementing to ensure that our schools are safe. Another important strategy and a place that families can really help us is on our daily health screening. So we will continue to implement the Ask, Look for all students, staff, and others that are entering our building on a daily basis. So parents, we ask for your help before you send your students to school each day that you, one, ask your student or even check if your child has any of the COVID-related symptoms that you see here on the screen. I want to flag for you that if your student has any of the red flag symptoms, which includes a new or worsening cough, shortness of breath, or rapid or irregular breathing, new loss of taste or smell or fever, you should not send your child to school. Or if your child has any of the 2 following symptoms listed below, your child should stay at home. So one of the key ways that we prevent the spread is that we ask if you are sick, stay home. It's really, really important that you do that and you keep a good eye on your children, your young people this time of the year. Number 2, ask your student, have they been around or been in close contact with any person who has tested positive for COVID in the last 10 days. So if a student has been identified as a close contact, and by definition, that means they have been in close proximity to someone, either unmasked or if they're student to student 3 feet or closer than 3 feet for 15 cumulative minutes. So please check to see if they've been in close contact with any COVID positive individuals. And finally, we ask that you look for any symptoms of illness. Just do a visual look at your children to see, do they look like they may be sick or have fever? Check for those things. And that's one of the really important ways that you can help us ensure that our schools remain COVID-free. Next slide. Another important strategy that we will continue to implement to mitigate the impact of COVID in our schools is our asymptomatic testing. So we started implementing asymptomatic testing around September 1 for this school year. And to date, we have administered more than 96,000 asymptomatic tests in our schools. And we're finding it to be a very effective strategy for us, knowing where there might be students who are asymptomatic in our schools. This testing is administered on a weekly basis at every campus, every DCPS campus. It is open to all of our students and our staff. Again, this was an opt-out program, so if families did not want to participate, they had an opportunity to opt out. And on a weekly basis, our schools strive to test 20% of their students based on their enrollment. Again, this is a saliva-based test administered by our vendor Shield 3. In the first week of January, we will also begin again implementing this strategy. And so it's a short week, as you know, students will be in our building on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, January 5th through 7th. But during that time period, we will conduct asymptomatic testing at every school campus for the DCPS schools. Then the following week, the week of January the 10th, we will go back to our regular schedule, testing Monday through Friday, about 1/5 of our schools during each of those days. Next slide. And then finally, I want to just point out that another strategy that we have in place is providing timely notifications to our school communities when there is a positive case in a building, and also contact tracing to understand others that potentially may have been in close contact and have some vulnerability related to that particular case. We have 3 specific strategies with regards to our COVID contact tracing process. Number 1 is report and isolate. So we strongly encourage, and I think the chancellor mentioned this earlier, if your child tests positive or you test positive, you're a staff member for DCPS, please let us know those results. Again, those results for the return to school can be uploaded into a database. So that is the way that we can be notified. Other folks that are, if you're unable to upload, we strongly encourage you to give your schools a call so that we can be aware of your status. And so we report that, and then we ask folks to isolate. Chancellor's already reviewed the isolation period. If you test positive, that is for 10 days. And then as part of our contact tracing, what we typically do is investigation, where we really try to understand any contacts that, close contacts that an individual would have had within the school, ensure that those folks then in the final process are notified and also instructed to quarantine. We have a slight update to our process moving forward, is that with regards to our close contact notifications, if we're finding that we cannot get the updates for specific close contacts really quickly, expeditiously, our goal is to do a class-wide notification, because what's most important to us is notifying our families as quickly as possible if their student might be vulnerable, in this case, as a close contact to someone who's tested positive. Community notifications, moving forward, we will note a total number of new cases reported in a school building on a day, just to support more quickly notification and reduce the number of repeat notifications that families may receive. Next slide, please. And I think it's going back to Chancellor Farabee.
Thank you, Dr. Elliott. So I mentioned earlier, families, that there are scenarios in which DCPS would shift a classroom, a grade level, or an entire school to virtual. And when we do pivot to virtual for schools, that will be up to 10 days, whether that be a classroom, a grade level, or entire school. And those decisions are made on a case-by-case basis, considering 3 factors. One, if there's any health guidance from health authorities as relates to a concern of risk of transmission. And then secondly, we consider educational continuity. Here we would look at the number of students impacted either by positive cases or the number of students that are in quarantine as well, to ensure that we are able to deliver on the best instructional environment for students. And then the final consideration is operation. If there are operational impacts that prevent us from operating effectively and safely, we would also pivot to a virtual posture. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, our goal is always to ensure that schools maintain essential operations and that we're open to the greatest extent possible. We also are thinking about access to meals during this time. So Eli is going to share a little bit more about how we provide meals to families when there's a need to pivot to a virtual posture.
Thank you, Chancellor. Next slide, please. As I indicated before, we recognize that students rely on DCPS not just for their educational needs, but also for their food and nutrition needs. Here, if we do have to shift to virtual learning, to the greatest extent possible, those schools that go virtual, we will work to ensure that that school is able to provide grab-and-go meals at that site. When that occurs, they'll be able to grab a single meal pack every day, operated between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. That meal will contain breakfast and lunch, and then they'll be able to come back the next day throughout the entire virtual period. If for any case that school does not have the capability of moving to a grab-and-go meal system, we do operate 4 open meal sites where any student 18 and under can go and obtain a meal kit for that day. That's Ballou, Columbia Heights, Dunbar, and Ron Brown. But again, we will work to the greatest extent possible to ensure that any school that goes virtual will have the opportunity to be a grab-and-go meal site so that those students are fully supported. And with that, I will transition to Dr. Elliott, or excuse me, to the Chancellor.
Thank you, Eli, for sharing that information about food access. So as we shift towards the end of the presentation, I want us to go to the next slide to provide another reminder to families about what we can do to ensure that we maintain school operations, but more importantly, the best and most important strategy for protecting our families. And that is to ensure everyone that is eligible to be vaccinated is vaccinated. And also, if you're eligible to be boosted, is to be boosted. We're encouraging everyone to participate in our city's vaccination and booster efforts to ensure that all of our DCPS staff members, students, and family members have the vaccinations they need to continue to remain safe. Our school sites will continue to serve as opportunities for families to participate and get vaccinated in our vaccination clinics. And you can see the dates and location throughout the month of January. And then we'll continue to offer options for families to get vaccinated. So please, families and staff, we encourage you to get vaccinated. If you've been vaccinated, you haven't been boosted, please get your booster shots. And then finally, I want to close our presentation with information on the sites in which families can pick up their rapid antigen test kits. So we shared earlier that families can go directly to schools. If you look on the next slide, we're providing the locations and times in which families can go and pick up a rapid test at several sites throughout the city. This is important because many of these sites and times are offered in the evening, and then there's opportunities that families will have going into the holiday weekend as well. However, we're reminding families, if you do pick up a rapid antigen test kit for your family at these locations or during the holiday weekend, or if you purchase them and you give them privately, we're asking that you administer the test on Tuesday, January the 4th, so we have the results within 24 hours of when a student is slated to return back to school. We also ask that families upload the results in the website that we provided, the DCPS Safe Return website. We greatly appreciate our families supporting us during this time period to ensure that all of our students are tested before they return. I believe that's all of our content for presentation. Today, we also have some hotline information that we'll close with. So for our COVID-19 test results technical concerns, you go to the next slide, you can see the number to call, and that is 202-442-5885. Again, that's 202-442-5885, and that is technical concerns with uploading your results. And then for building an operation, health and safety concerns, you can always share that information by email at the DCPS.COVID email address. And then you can also call our hotline and that hotline number is 202-442-5656. We ask that either email or calling in on hotline that you please leave a detailed message about the health and safety concern that you have so that we can address the concern accordingly. I'm now going to turn it back over to Tomas, who is going to facilitate our question and answer session of the evening.
Thank you so much, Chancellor. And we have a lot of questions in the chat, so I want to thank everybody for asking your questions directly there. Again, we also have some questions on social media, on Twitter and Facebook. So again, if you have any questions that you've not been able to ask yet following the presentation, some outstanding questions that may still be there, please feel free to ask on the chat. And we will get to as many questions as we can before the end of our time here. But again, want to remind you can ask directly on the chat or on the feed for the TeleTownHall on Twitter or Facebook. So a few of the questions, and I'm trying to group them. We had a lot of similar questions in the chat. One question I think that came up quite often, Chancellor, is for parents for picking up the tests at the schools. Will this be by appointment? Or can families go to pick those tests up whenever on Monday and Tuesday?
Thank you, Tomas. So for the parent pickup at schools, no appointment is needed. Schools are going to communicate directly to their families about the logistics for their particular site because each site is different. But we anticipate families should have no issues with going to their school and easily picking up a kit. And then families can also go to the citywide sites I shared along with the schools as well.
Thank you, Chancellor. And in the same vein of that question, we got a few times, are students and families required to pick up from their specific school? If there's a school that's closer to their home, are they able to pick up from that school or another site?
They can go to another school that is not their home school, but we would ask that they get information from that school to ensure that they have all the details and logistics for pickup. But if there's another school that's closer to your home, you can go to that school and pick up a test.
Thank you, Chancellor. Our next question is going to be related to reporting results on the 5th. Families are just asking again if you can remind them where they submit their results, by what time they need to submit their results, and the website that they are submitting those at again.
Yeah, so the website is DCPS.dc.gov/safe return. Again, that is DCPS.dc.gov/safe return. And we're asking that families come and pick up their kits before 4 p.m. if they're doing it on Tuesday. We ask that families administer the tests as soon as they receive them so we can have our results by 5 p.m. on Tuesday, January the 5th. The results will be generated 15 minutes after the swab is introduced to the antigen solution. And then once that occurs, the family can produce a PDF document or a photo that can be uploaded to the website. And again, that website is dcps.dc.gov/safe return.
Chancellor, we had a few parents asking just about the process of once they've submitted how their home school will be receiving that information from DCPS related to their submission.
Yeah, thank you, Tomas. Great question. And we want families to know that we have taken great measures to maintain security with information. One of the reasons we're asking that families enter in the fields for submission the student name, contact information, email address, and the like is to ensure that the school will have access to that information so we can document that that student has completed a process and has a negative test result. Once all of the uploads are complete, that information will go directly to school leaders at each individual school.
Thank you, Chancellor. We'll go to our next question. Related to just testing, this is testing for return to school, but getting a lot of questions from parents about what testing following this week, what it'll look like in schools in January.
Yeah, so we will continue to assess and review and modify our testing protocols as needed. As the health crisis has evolved, we've evolved in our response. A great example of this is our test to return to school after winter break. And if there's a need to continue other elevated testing measures, we will certainly consider that and act accordingly. It's important to note we still will have our asymptomatic testing protocols in place as well, where we will randomly take tests that are saliva based to students in schools over the 3 days that they're in school the first week. And we will resume that again the following week. And then we will also continue to monitor the needs to make any other adjustments.
Great, thank you, Chancellor. We'll go to the next question, and we've got a few of these. Will there be any videos or any additional detailed guidance for families to assist them on how to accurately do these tests at home?
Yes, thank you for that question as well. So one feature of the antigen-based kit that we are distributing at schools and sites across the city is a video and very detailed instructions. So you can download the app, which will provide a video, and the vendor is iHealth. You're welcome to go ahead and download that application. You can see the video firsthand. And then in addition to the video and instruction provided in the kit, we'll be providing some side-by-side documents to families as well. And our team is also working on translation of instructions for various languages in addition to the instructions that come with the kit.
We're getting a few questions for how DCPS is also disseminating this information outside of Twitter, social media for those families that maybe do not have internet access.
Yeah, so we are going to call families directly. In addition to our social media outreach, we've already sent a text message to families, and we know that the majority of our families do have access to a mobile phone device. Then we'll also reach out to families by phone, and then we're asking that our school networks also reach out, which include parent guardians that are responsible for various classrooms, our parent-teacher organizations, and all of our networks that are connected to students and families.
Great. We're also getting a few questions, Chancellor, about if students show up that have not uploaded a result on the first day of school, what will be the process for students that arrive without proof of that?
Well, we are trying to keep that to a minimum. So our focus right now is on ensuring that everyone who is planning to return on the 5th has taken the test accordingly, is able to produce a negative test. We will continue to communicate to families on what to expect next week as we get results back in from families who uploaded their negative test proof.
Great, thank you, Chancellor. We're getting a few questions from parents just about the process that DCPS and schools are implementing on cleanings and those sort of parameters for students as they return to school in January.
Yeah, so our schools are under a cleaning protocol for the holidays. Just completed a review, for example, at Woodrow Wilson High School. And we're currently reviewing several sites across the city to ensure that our cleaning protocols are followed. And then we will also continue to follow our cleaning protocols as relates to cleaning schools when there are positive cases or need for a school to go virtual. I'll also turn to Eli Ross to see if he wants to add additional context about cleaning protocols as relates to our COVID response.
Thank you, Chancellor. And just to add, every day we have our custodians who are there at the school going through and ensuring that there's a clean and safe environment for our students on a daily basis. If we do have a situation where a deep cleaning is necessary, that's something where we'll work with our vendors and our partners at the Department of General Services to turn on a deep cleaning for any school that may need it on a case-by-case basis.
Great, thank you, Eli and Chancellor, on that. Chancellor, we're also just getting questions for students that do test positive and are then staying home and quarantining. What are the options available for them for schooling during that time?
So the options will be consistent with what we've done in the past. If there are a few number of students that are out in the classroom, we typically transition to an asynchronous posture for those students. And those assignments associated with their grade level in classrooms will be provided accordingly by their teachers. And then they'll also have access to technology as needed as well. If we have a larger proportion of students out in a classroom or grade level, we transition to a simulcast environment where the teacher will teach live instruction virtually to students. If there, again, is a critical mass and need for that, and we'll continue to assess that need for each classroom, grade level, in school on a case-by-case situational basis.
Thank you, Chancellor. We have a lot of questions, so I'm trying to get through as many as we possibly can in our time. So we did get a few questions from parents just wondering if masks will be provided for families as well, families and students.
Yeah, so we will continue to provide masks to students. Any student who comes to school and they don't have a mask, will provide one, and that's consistent with our response throughout the health crisis.
Great, thank you, Chancellor. Chancellor, and can you just remind everyone of the website where they can get this information, or if they have additional questions where they can follow up with? I know we have a limited time to get through as many questions as we can, but I just want to give those reminders out to families just in case we can't get to their question. I know we're getting close on time here.
Yeah, thank you, Tomas. Yeah, we provide a wealth of information on our DCPS Reopen Strong website. Families can go there and get more information about our operations. They can also get information about our notifications to families in the community as we keep everyone informed of any positive cases in the school. And then there's also information about our health and safety measures as well. And again, that website is dcpsreopenstrong.com.
I did get a few parents asking, Chancellor, if a parent has to work past 5 p.m. and can't submit before the 5 p.m. deadline, wondering how they would submit negative results after the deadline.
Yeah, so we're asking families if there are conflicts with work schedules on Monday and Tuesday to ensure that they're able to take advantage of some of the weekend hours for testing. And if there are needs for families to upload the results on Tuesday and the parent or guardian is not home, anyone 15 years of age or older can administer the test. And so other family members in the household or adults can assist students a part of our protocol uploading their results. If any family has difficulty uploading those results after that time period, we ask that they reach out directly to the staff at their schools so we are aware of that information and it can be noted.
You, Chancellor. I know we're coming up on time, Chancellor, so I just want to remind everyone, we couldn't get to every question. We will be able to have a lot of this information available for you online at dcps.dc.gov/safereturn. We will have the presentation up on the website as well. So if if we were going through the slides and you were able to take the notes down, this will be available online for families to look through, to review. And to get that information. And again, with the kits, they do provide instructions on how to do it safely. I think every one of us on this line have done a rapid test and antigen test. If you haven't already, I can assure you they are quite easy and not too scary. Look, very an easy process to do, and they'll have that information in multiple languages for you to see just how to do that. But again, want to make sure that you have that website, dcps.dc.gov/safe return. Chancellor, I do want to pass it back to you and your team to provide any closing comments, as well as any other additional information that you would like to share with families.
Yeah, so just remind families that we believe our school operations are essential. We believe the best place for our students to learn is school, and we believe that we should preserve school operations as much as possible. And to do that, we're relying on you to help us with this massive effort to ensure that every student has a negative test before they return, and also a negative test for our staff. This is a large-scale effort, one of the largest testing efforts we've had, but we believe it's an important step that we take to ensure our students can return back to school safely. I think we could all agree that a massive effort around virtual learning for students for extended period of time has been difficult, and that we continue to hear from students and families the importance of having our students in school. So we ask that you help us in getting our students tested, and we ask that you upload the results and you report that to us so we can have a safe return to school on Wednesday, January the 5th. We thank you for your support.
Thank you, Chancellor, and thank you everyone for joining us this evening. I want to remind you, for all the information on the district's response to the coronavirus pandemic, information as well as guidances and a list of our testing sites, and as well as our vaccination sites where you can go get your vaccine if you're not vaccinated, get your booster if you're not have not received your booster. We know that is a powerful tool, so we want to make sure that everyone gets their booster. You can visit coronavirus.dc.gov. Thank you all to our speakers for being here, and first and foremost, and thank you to all of our families, our DCPS students, our DCPS teachers for being here with us today. Thank you.
Thank you.